The Board of Directors meeting for December 14th, 2022 to order. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right. Denise, can we get a roll call, please?
Director Walper,
Here.
Director Martinez,
Here.
Director Berman,
Here.
Director Johnston,
Here.
Director Shibahara,
Here.
Vice Chair Wheeler,
Here.
Chair Rydell.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, welcome, everybody. Denise, was the agenda properly notified, or the meeting properly notified?
Yes, it was.
Perfect, thank you. All right, we'll jump in. If I can get a motion to approve or amend the agenda as presented.
Chair Idell, I move to approve the agenda as noted. One thing of note, just on the discussion, we're going to turn that into a city water versus well water, and then add just the general North Athletic Complex conversation to that, if that's okay.
So it's been moved to amend the agenda to add the discussion for the North 20 complex to the discussion area. That's been moved and seconded. All in favor? All
Carries.
right, thank you. Okay, next up, we have a special holiday treat here, so we'll call up Mr. Frunk, and I believe the Ranger Choir is here to perform tonight. So as they're filing in, this formerly known as the Troubadours, I believe, in years past, for those of us who have been in here for a while, long time. So we'll turn it over to Mr. Frunk.
This is a independent group as far as they're very, I direct them, but once they get out and rehearse, they're on their own. I just want to take this opportunity to thank our board for your service and for your support of the music department and the arts for the 27 years that I've been here, and just a great place to have music, and it's always fun when we go out in the public, and people are always surprised that we have the arts that we do in Estacada, and that's due largely in part to your support of what we do. So without further ado, the Ranger Choir.
Our first song today will be Deck the Hall, arranged by Elizabeth Campbell. Deck the halls with boughs of holly, fa la 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 la, 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 fa la See the blazing Yule before us, fa la 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 la. Strike the harp and join the chorus, fa la 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 la. Fa la la, fa la la, fa la la, fa la 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 la, fa la 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 la, fa la 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 la, fa la 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 la. Fast away the old year passes, fa la 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 la, fa la 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 la, fa la 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 la, fa la 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 la, fa la 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 la, fa la
that we will be singing is called Coventry Carol by Audrey Snyder.
Tiny child, bye bye, lulay, 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 thou little tiny child, bye bye, lulay, 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 bye bye, lulay, lulay, lulay. Bye bye, lulay, lulay, lulay. Herod the king in his raging, charged Daddy of this day. Man of light in his own sight, in his sight children young to slay. Lulay, lulay, then woe is me, boy child, for thee, and evermore this day. For thy parting neither say nor sing. Bye bye, lulay, 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 lulay.
Our last song will be Jingle Bells, arranged by Audrey Snyder.
Jing, 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 fa la la la, fa la la, jing, jing, fa la, hey, dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh. O'er the fields we go, laughing all the way. Bells on bobtails ringing and making spirits bright. What fun it is to ride and sing a sleighing song tonight. Jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride, jingle, jingle, hey, jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride, one horse open, one horse open sleigh. Jingle, jingle, jingle bells, jingle, 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 jingle bells, jingle, 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 jingle bells, jingle, 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 jingle bells. And soon Miss Fanny Bright, jingle, 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 jingle bells, jingle, 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 down into a drifted lake, and then we gotta stop, whoop, whoop, up, stop, hey, jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride one horse, one horse, one horse, one horse, one horse open sleigh. Jingle, 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 one horse open sleigh. Dashing through the snow, o'er the fields we go, o'er the fields we go, o'er the fields we go. Jing, 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 sleighing song tonight. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride. O'er the fields we go, o'er the fields we go. Jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle, what fun it is to ride. One horse, jingle, 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 jingle.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Excellent work. Nice to have him back.
Hard to follow that.
Exactly. Following that is Board of Directors reports. Mr. Walper.
I would pay to see that. They were very good, very good. Also, I'd like to retract a statement that I made that I thought we should get our money back for the field out there because we lost the first game. I think it's well worth it now. Really happy with
Got to
the,
eat those words, right?
man, amen, brother. I tell you, that was awesome. Good football game, good choir. I'm really proud to be a part of this.
Thank you. Director Berman.
Nothing to report, thanks.
Director Bahara.
I did get to pay to listen to them sing at the Grotto Monday night. The choir has been performing nonstop for the last few weeks. And my daughter is unfortunately not here to perform, but they're amazing and so impressed with their perseverance and talent and leadership. I also just wanted to share, I went last week and toured Ant Farm's facility down in the community of Estacada as a potential for the adult transitions program. And so I think Mr. Carpenter, or Superintendent Carpenter, will be providing some information during his report tonight. But anyway, just look forward to having more conversations about that program as it grows. I think it's a neat opportunity for our district. And I'll let Ken do all the other music stuff. Yeah.
Nothing to add, just congratulate our, choir and really like the fact that they came and sang to us, and it's just perfect way to end our last board meeting of the year. So great, thank you for doing that for us. Also would like to congratulate our football championships this year. I also want to congratulate Ryan, our superintendent, for doing an amazing job this year, and look forward to the next year. So awesome to be part of.
I don't know if I was here last time when we met with the conferences, but face-to-face, and I did a hybrid. We did face-to-face and online just to make sure we got the feel of both of them, and it went very well. There's a lot of good information that was shared, action items that parents could take. And then my daughter's in the middle school advanced choir, so they sung at the Grotto on Monday night. And I'm trying to make this sound like a compliment, so I'm going to say the growth from the fall to this performance was amazing. And I know it's got to be some of the sound acoustics that are in that room at the Grotto, but all the voices were together. So it was very nice to see that. So that was it for me.
Nothing. Everybody else said it.
So I'll try not to repeat. I will say conferences, I appreciate having the virtual option. So, so if we can get that back to building leaders, because that makes a difference for my ability to participate in all of them. So thank you for continuing to do that. Mary Poppins is coming in January, so keep an eye on social media and website for the school district. So the high school music program's putting on Mary Poppins, very exciting. Two more music things. We had two high school musicians, one vocalist, one instrumentalist that was selected for to participate in the All-State Music Festival down in Eugene, which is exciting. And then we had one that was selected to participate in the All Northwest Music Festival in Bellevue that covers 5 western states. So cool stuff coming there. That's all I got tonight. All right. All right, next we're going to call up the Estacada High School 4A football state champion. And how they won a state title with 4 players is pretty crazy. But, obviously a small representation, but thanks for being here, and I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Mott.
Wow, thank you guys for having us tonight. I really appreciate it. And thank you for everything that you guys do. Superintendent Carpenter on board of directors. I've said it, since we've won, but since I've been here forever, this district is really an amazing place that gives us great opportunities to do things like this. And, I think without the help of you guys and the district as a whole, these things aren't possible. It really does take the entire district and the community as a whole to kind of make this happen. And so just thank you for everything you guys have done. Director Walper was spot on too with what he said. I mean, that project you guys took on, with Mike and everybody, I mean, it really did make a difference. And it wasn't just with our program. I saw it with our soccer programs this year, the competitiveness that they had and the seasons they had along with our youth. It really has been a game changer across the board in our district. So thank you for bringing that here. I know these guys appreciated that. They can attest to that as well. So, but yeah, and great. It was just a great season, and appreciate your guys' support. And we were happy to bring that to Estacada and into this town.
Awesome.
Mazama whooped you guys, but I'm going to tell you something right now. There's 3 high schools in Cathlamet, if you didn't know that, and the best of the best go to Mazama. So for a little school, we kicked butt.
Thank you.
So I have a question for Mariano. And I think I know the answer, but we'll see. What was your favorite play this season?
When I scored the 2-point conversion.
Park Rose.
Park Road.
Oh, was it Junction City? Oh, it was a playoff game too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who we play.
I just everyone blocked so well, but I just wanted to hit someone, I didn't win, but it was really exciting.
I think all 5 linemen, excuse me, had been bugging me all year. Like, if we, we had some games that got out of hand, and they was like, we want to run the ball, I was like, I don't want anyone to get hurt. Finally, you have to let us, all right, pick one guy. I don't care who's it gonna be, and they're all like, it's gotta be Mario. And,
the one guy we know that can handle a football,
exactly,
right?
Yeah. But his eyes were like this big when he came to the side. He's like, that hole was huge. He was fired up. So, yeah,
that's awesome.
It's really cool.
Well, I truly want to congratulate Andy Mott for the leadership and that you've taught these kids and the discipline. I've been, as a parent of, one of those kids. I mean, I know that the bond that the team has had for the last 8 years that they've been playing is amazing. So they were able to accomplish what they did because of the hard work, dedication, discipline, and that's thanks to the coaches, to you guys, the leadership that helped them accomplish that. So kudos to all of you guys, but also to the coaches for yeah, I mean, the last 8 years I've seen the bond that these kids, working together as a team, and, it's a great accomplishment. So you guys should be very proud of what you guys did.
Thank you.
I'd like to extend my question to the other players too. So let's start with Jaden down there.
It's probably the play Buck 8. One of my favorites. Except we never ran it because I think it was the Junction City game that we went to run it, and for some reason in my mind I just went, oh, it's Buck 7, because we don't ever pull my side. And I didn't pull, and I ran into Mario, and Mario's like, what are you doing, Jaden? What are you doing? And I'm like, oh, crap. But, Aaron, confused the guy.
I was running the ball on that play, actually. And then, I don't know who was on the edge, but they just didn't see me. Since he didn't go in motion, they just didn't read anything, and it just ran right past him. I got lucky.
We leave a guy unblocked for Jaden to pull and kick out, and Jaden didn't pull. But luckily, the guy took the fake, and so Aaron's fast enough and athletic enough to get around him, and so yeah, it was fun though.
Awesome. Yeah. What about you, Aaron?
It'd probably have to be the Park Rose, the kickoff return touchdown that I made. It was pretty intense. Got really good blocks by Peyton and Mark, and it just gave me just enough for him to get by.
Awesome.
Probably have to be my favorite.
Favorite play that we ran in the game was probably that veer four reverse at the very beginning of the LaSalle game. But favorite play that we ran in practice was probably toss 7 throwback. So I would line up on the opposite side of as a receiver. Corey would toss it to Tucker. Tucker would toss it back to me, and then I would throw it back to Corey. Just really hoping we were gonna end up running that at some point.
Awesome.
Goals. You got goals.
Yeah.
Talk to coach about next year.
Well, the blonde hair is carrying over to every other sport now. So, you know where they are.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, good job, guys. It was an awesome season.
Thanks for the support.
Well, thank you guys for everything, like I said. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. So thanks for all the support.
It was amazing. I was listening to one of the games on the radio. It was OSA was announcing, and the announcer said, "I'm pretty sure the entire town of Estacada is in this place right now." And it is true. And the house were packed, and this entire community came full force, like with the support. And you guys gave them something to root for. So your hard work is paying off. So continue on.
All right. Congratulations. Anything else you guys want to share with us?
No, just thank you guys again for everything. We really appreciate it.
How do you
Thank
like
you,
that
guys.
new field?
What's that?
How do you like that new field?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I'll be honest with you. The first time we took the field, like, the kids were just giddy and just, I mean, it was like, what is this? I mean, to essentially be able to, but I think a lot of people overlook, like, your ability to practice and stuff and just get good reps. I mean, that was something in the playoff times that we'd be able to go and throw the lights on in there because it gets dark, but you're still not on a good surface, or you're busting to sandy, you're doing something, and to have a spot to go practice and really get in good quality, football, practice-wise, it makes a night and day difference. I mean, I can honestly tell you it was a game changer for us when playoffs came around, that we were able to get some good practice time and obviously, be able to play games at home that might have got moved away. So it was amazing.
Thank Ryan for it, because he marched us all out there on the gooeyest,
I remember that
wettest
video.
night.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we were slipping and sliding.
Yeah. But I mean, we had West Lynn come out here for a practice because they were smoked out of, their city when the smoke and fires were going on. And, their coaches are emailing me like, your facility is amazing. It's better than, on par or better than our facilities, at a 6A level. And, other people that play football are like, this is a small college stadium, essentially. So to be able to give our kids, and community something to come to, and not to mention even the lights and the scoreboard and the new, the horn. I heard it, I'm not joking, I live up Wildcat. I heard it one night during a soccer game when I wasn't working the game. And I heard it when I was out feeding the animals. And I was like, oh my God, that was the horn. So it's Eagle Creek. Yeah. So it's pretty cool. So yeah, just overall, just amazing. Thank you guys.
Well, thank you and congratulations on a great year. Truly.
Thank you.
Those don't come easy. Yeah. All right, so before we let you go, I want to call up Charity Hughes, who is an Estacada City Councilor and the liaison between the Estacada City Council and the Estacada School Board. And so she would like to address the representatives of the high school football team. So take it away.
So good evening, guys. My name is Charity Hughes, and this is really exciting. You guys should be super, super proud of what you've accomplished. And so for the sake of time and respect to the clock, I won't read through the whole proclamation, but on behalf of the Office of the Mayor and the City Council and the City of Estacada, we want to present to you this plaque, which is a proclamation of your guys' accomplishment this season.
Wow,
So
very cool.
congratulations, read through it all, it's a little lengthy, but
Oh, that's amazing.
yeah, you should be super proud of.
Wow, cool. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Charity.
Wow, that's really nice. Very cool.
If I may state in conclusion, one of the honors of a team winning a state championship is the school district is responsible for purchasing the state championship
rings. And as we honor that purchase of that, each school board of director will also be receiving one of those rings. And so before you depart tonight, we need to get your finger size so that we can custom make a ring for you as we truly celebrate what was a team effort to help our kids be as successful as possible. So awesome.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Cool.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you, guys.
Congratulations, guys.
Thanks.
Oh, is there? Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. You can't leave yet. You thought you were off the hook a couple times, but.
I got one more thing for you to do for me, okay? And just don't do it for me, man. Hey, bring that back to Estacada. Hey, do it for our town. You saw them down there today. Hey, they want that. We've never done it. Hey, do it for everybody in that town. Hey, do it for everybody that's wore the Ranger jersey. Hey, there's some of those guys in this room, man. They just dreamed about this, having this chance. You got it. Do it for them. Hey, do it for them. Do it for those little kids out there tonight that want to be like you someday. And maybe be a champion. Can you do that? Yes, sir. Let's do it. Clap it up.
sure you guys haven't seen that.
Yeah. Good job, Josh.
Yeah, nice job, Josh.
Yeah,
Yes.
wow.
Big thank you to Josh and Cruz. So I think that's been on a loop in my house for.
Yes.
All right. Anything else for the football representatives here?
Good job, guys.
All right.
Congrats.
Thank you again.
Thank you, guys.
Congratulations. Excellent job. All right, now on to item E, district reports. So we'll start with Maggie Kelly in communications.
Good evening. Those are some tough acts to follow up, but it's always a pleasure to be here. So for our December communications report, first I'll start with our projects in progress right now. We have been utilizing this space a great deal to begin filming our 90-day rollout production, and what that is a lot of our district leaders, principals, and directors reporting out on our continuous improvement progress on our strategic plan. So we will be releasing this 90-day rollout that shares the reports from all of these leaders shortly after winter break. And this is, again, just our way of being transparent and accountable when it comes to our results as we work to achieve our strategic plan aims. Another project that is in progress right now is showcasing some of our winter activities. Now that we've transitioned out of fall, we want to showcase some of those winter athletic events, but also some of our other winter events. We are excited to have the opportunity to live stream Mary Poppins, and we want to just showcase some of those things like our arts programs and our choir programs. So we're excited to dive into that work. Additionally, a lot of community engagement going on right now. Last night, Leticia Gonzalez, our district translator interpreter, hosted a family night with our Spanish-speaking families, and we had our largest attendance yet. We had about 35 people show up, and we saw some faces that we've never seen before. We saw some middle and high school families on a very busy night throughout the district. So it's great to see families, both returning and new families showing up that are finding value in those resources. And a lot of community engagement will be going on as we begin rolling into our new strategic plan coming up in the upcoming months. So looking forward to diving into that as well. And then lastly, school tours. That has been an ongoing process, and a huge credit to the teachers that have opened up their classrooms to the community, as well as some of the other district leaders that have helped lead that process. But just a great opportunity to be visible to our community, to say, hey, it's been a while, we've been closed for a while, come on in, check out what we're doing in our classrooms. So today we had the opportunity to do that for about 30 local business owners, our Chamber of Commerce. They got to tour the high school for classrooms. So that was wonderful to be a part of facilitating that process. And then some of our recently completed projects, of course, our fall extracurricular productions. As you just saw, it's been such a highlight to showcase the football team, but also Josh has already been talking about how we can up the game for next year when it comes to soccer and football, and graduation will be here before we know it. So we're already talking about how we can utilize that wonderful new space to showcase to our community for graduation and those amazing events that are coming up this spring as well. And then another recently completed project, just working again to fine-tune our inclement weather communication. What will it look like when we transition back to those virtual days? What does a read day look like? Kind of figuring out some of those protocols and making sure we're tight on that internally and then communicating that externally. We also work through some troubleshooting of people that might have difficulties accessing their cell phone due to issues getting internet access or cell phone access out in those rural areas. So just making sure everyone gets all of our communication at all times has been a good project. And then lastly, completing fall conferences. We had a good amount of people that signed up for conferences, so really delving into how we can continue to make that as engaging as possible for families and what we need to fine-tune and plus Delta for spring conferences. Any questions?
I have one, Maggie. When we come back in the new year, can you put up the Parent Square usage from internally, and just to continue to see that grow?
Yeah, I'll bring back that graph again. Great.
I have a small request. Parent conferences worked very good for me too, as well, to participate as a parent. But one request is, can we increase time if needed? I lost a conference because my previous conference took a little bit longer than expected, so it was like a back-to-back kind of thing. And then when I joined the second conference, it was like teacher was gone.
No,
There was
but
no
yeah.
follow-up, there was kind of nothing, so I would just, I don't know if there's an option to extend time, but
That's
that
really good
is-
feedback. I appreciate
yeah.
that. That was one of the deltas we had, was when people show up a little early or a little late, and we have next in lines how we can still accommodate those families. So yeah, I'll dive into that a little more. Thank you.
Maggie, our meeting earlier, you had mentioned there's a survey coming out in January, is that right?
Yeah, so we will be putting polling out in the community in January. Again, not everyone gets the call. It's about 400 communities, households throughout our community that will get that polling call.
I also had a question. Was there like a Canvas outage, or is Canvas no longer being used within the district, or?
Yesterday, we had a pretty decent Google outage. A lot of students were not able to get into their Chromebooks and some other accounts. That might be
Yeah, maybe
what
that was
you're
like
referring to,
yeah,
but
my students were mentioning something about not being able to access their assignments and some different things like that.
If it were yesterday, that would have been a Google outage. But our expectation as a district is that all folks still use Canvas as their platform
Okay,
for access.
so there was just and that wasn't district outage, it was just a
was a
larger
national,
Google,
yeah.
I just wasn't aware of it.
If it's ongoing, definitely contact technology. If it was just yesterday, that was probably it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay,
Okay, any other questions for Maggie?
thank you.
All right, thanks, Maggie. All right, next up, Mike Ware, Building and Facilities Report.
All right, good evening. I would like to start off with just our capital improvement projects that we have in progress. We recently wrapped up the on-site visit of the facility condition assessment. That group, McKinstry, is collecting all the data right now, putting it together. They hope to have a preliminary draft ready for the district by end of January, and then a final draft by February, so I can present to the board. We'll also start getting access to that dashboard that we referenced, so we can start looking at the data more in depth and narrow down different areas of need within our district. The heat pump split units, a project that we are moving forward with. We did get ODE approval through ESSER 3 funds to start this project, to move forward with this capital project. Again, this is approximately 33 classrooms throughout our district to install mini splits. And that's about a third, a little bit more than a third of our classrooms within our district. We released the RFP we released our RFP on December 8th, and so we're starting to get inquiries from our contractors, but nothing hard yet. We have site visits scheduled for next week and then for early January. We have started the process for ETO incentives and SB 1149 incentives, because these are energy efficient project. The first step for ETO is to do an energy audit. So we're working with ETO on scheduling that, getting their auditors out to complete the project at all 4 schools. SB 1149 works with ETO pretty seamlessly, so once we get the audit, we can start to apply, and it works for both incentives. So we look forward to hopefully getting some money back from this project. River Mill Elementary seismic rehab project, we are about 60% complete on the design phase. We expect 90% to be done towards the end of this month, and then final towards the end of January. We are still looking at some pricing for additional funds. We talked about additional shear walls for within the classrooms, because if you recall, at River Mill, we have some removable walls that actually don't move at all anymore. So adding more shear walls, LED lighting within the district or within the school itself. We are also exploring the front soffit area of River Mill. As you can see from this picture here, where the arrows are pointing, there's a little bit of sagging going on in that front soffit. And so as we identified that as an issue, we've done some exploratory work. We're going to need to do a little bit more, but we're getting pricing on how to repair that through under this grant. I hope to be able to bring that pricing to the board next month.
Is that the only area on the building that's doing that?
Yes.
Is that due to settlement?
I don't know the answer to that. I can find out and report back. So we're going to hopefully get some pricing and be able to attack this part of the project. We did look into ETO incentives for the LED lighting of this part of the project. However, since this is a 100% funded through grant, ETO will not fund or provide any incentives. And when I say ETO, I'll back up, Energy Trust of Oregon. So unfortunately, we won't have any incentives there. I have not checked in with SB 1149 funds through the state, but likely will be the same case. Wanted to just tell the board or talk to the board about what we're doing over winter break for facilities and maintenance, really tackling some of the larger work orders that require more time and more resources, especially if it has an impact in the classroom where our maintenance crew cannot get in during teaching and learning. Doing some winterization through storm cleanouts, our boilers, annual service, and HVAC filters and inspections. So some preventative maintenance as well, which is much needed over the winter break and at a great time to do that work. In our information tech IT department, we purchased some new phones that we're going to be installing throughout our district, as well as additional projectors, and then working through our inventory cleaning up through the beginning of the school year till now, just making sure that we have all of our inventory accounted for and within our system and that we can track it properly. And then I'd like to share some great news with the board that we actually were able to find a seller for the biomass to buy pellets. And so we've been actually using the biomass for about the last 3 weeks. And we're averaging about 500 to 700 pounds a day. On a colder day, it's about 1,000 pounds. But we purchased 29 tons about 3 weeks ago at $269 a ton. We expect it to last for about 45 to 50 days. We've noticed an improvement with our heating within this school specifically from the water heat and as well as just in the commons. It's actually warmer in the commons, which is a big win. So as we're using this system, we're finding that we're making some savings. We're having some improvement to our heating. And just to show some comparison, when we're using our fuel, our diesel, it's about 60 to 80 gallons a day, and we know that diesel is very costly. It's about $5 or plus per gallon. So if we do the math quickly, if we're going on a colder day, it's about half of that, $269 a day for the use of the heat this building. So we're excited for embarking on this and utilizing this system. My first time us using it in the last 3 years, and so we're keep pursuing it. We have a wholesaler, and we're going to keep working with that.
Do they seem to think that they're going to have pellets available?
Yes.
For the
Yes, and you can see from the picture they have the equipment necessary to be able to put those pellets in there. Now that we have the thing, it took a little while because we haven't ran it for a while, right? So it took a while to get the auger working and kind of clean out the system, if you will. But now it's humming really well and heating up our building very well.
It's like 25% of the cost.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a huge
Big savings. Yep.
Where does 29 tons go?
Goes in that big hopper.
In that big hopper right there. Yeah, in that big, and that didn't actually even fill it up. So it's we wanted just to test it. Yeah, it's a big hopper.
What's the payment on that thing that we were paying?
1.4 million is what the total costs. We paid $500,000 up front, and we owe about
5,000 a year, and I think we have about 5 more years.
When did we buy that?
Bond time 2001. I looked at.
No, we bought it in 2010, I believe. My first year in this district was 2009-10 school year. I taught in that classroom, and that was the first year that it was installed. So before any of really our time in this leadership role.
So help me out. New guy on the block again.
Yeah.
Why did we stop using it? Because of the price of fuel was so low, or what?
Yeah. So first, when we installed it, the price for pellets was more expensive than the price for diesel. And so early on, we chose the most cost-effective way, which was diesel at that time. Once we started running it when it was the same and/or better to buy pellets, we ran the pellets, but the company who we bought the pellets from went out of business. And so for about 2 years, there was no local company who was selling Traeger pellets, basically, at a mass, and then also with the vehicular equipment to launch it into that grain silo right there. And so for 2 years, we had no other choice but to run diesel because there was no company to buy it. Recently, we have found a company in Woodburn, pun intended, who now can come down and fill this thing. But this was their first time doing it with us, and this is the first load that we've purchased from them. So we're back on track now, but your questions are good questions, yeah.
I think the original reason why this was in the Obama era, there was the shovel-ready, quote-unquote, shovel-ready turnkey projects that he was touting. And so they went around with the USDA, and John Day, there was one. There was an old defunct lumber
Yes.
mill, and they were going to all the national forests and saying, hey, we're going to take all this biomass, we're going to make all these jobs. Well, it didn't turn out to be what it was. And so the thought was that we would take all the biomass, make pellets, and then we would heat all these government buildings with it.
Yeah.
But it fell right on its face. The one in John Day got up and running almost, and then it went out of business, just
Yeah.
like the lumber mill did. And so a lot of these other mills, and like the Mount Hood National Forest doesn't create enough biomass, they don't log enough to create it, and so
Nice.
we're in this pickle of, now we have this big capital improvement, but no way to feed it. So that's why. And then also, not to dive into it too much, but Bear Mountain was in Cascade Locks, and their plant burned down. And then there was another one down, I believe it was in Lyons, that had a plant failure. And so all of a sudden we have this capital improvement that there's no way to feed it, so.
Good job.
Good history.
Yeah.
And when, diesel's $2 a gallon, right? When we buy it in bulk, that makes a difference as well. So it does give us the opportunity to use the most price effective, right? So
Yeah.
if it's cheaper to run diesel, we can run diesel. If it's cheaper to run pellets, we can run pellets, which is a smart way to utilize it, which is another intention.
Any other questions?
I do. You talked about the capital assessment with McKinstry, and I know when we went through that originally, there was a secondary company that they had talked about that we said, hey, let's pause on that, let's do some more work. Have we looked into that next step at all at this point in time?
I'll speak to the investigations that we did look into it. We looked into whether we needed to contract with an outside firm to complete a long-range facility planning. We know that the long-range facility and facility condition assessment is required for the awesome grant if the board were to go for a bond. We did get confirmation through ORS and through ODE that we're not required to contract out. We can complete the long-range facility planning in-house. And so with that information, we're still discussing what we want to do with it. We have not engaged in any other conversations with any other firms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
And then the Rivermill seismic, so we're looking to have planning done January. Are we looking to have that work done over the summer?
Yes, sir. So we're going to be doing some testing over winter break, and then I hope, our goal is to start some of the work over spring break and that May break time as well. That won't impact teaching and learning. The day we're out of school, we're going to mobilize and be ready. Well, we'll be mobilized and ready to go. We have a short timeline with our summer, and we've made it very clear that we need to be ready to open come fall 23.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.
But last time I remember you were presented on parking by the transportation building. Is that still in the works?
We received one bid on the modified parking footprint, and right now we are, again, still in discussions. The bid was fairly significant and probably something we need to readdress again. It's still in the discussion, it's still in the planning. I believe we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but we have not made any movement on it.
Yep. More questions for Mike? All right. Thanks, Mike, appreciate it.
Yep.
Okay, next up, Christina Irish, Finance Report.
Good evening. So I'm going to be sharing with you the a quick update on the November financials. You have the complete package in your board packet. I'm going to start with just the highlights of the general fund. For the fiscal year, we're projecting revenue of $41.7 million. And for expenditures, we're projecting $37.5 million. That is ending fund balance of $4,288,000, which is about 12% ending fund balance. The next is just kind of a look at where we're at expenditures and year-to-date, or expenditures and an encumbrance. For instructional, we're at 91.7%. For support services, we're at 86.6%. And then at other uses, we're at 100%. And then for our capital projects funds, we're projecting $2,777,000 in revenue and $1.9 million in expenditures. And that will leave us with an ending fund balance of $877,000. And then for our enrollment, the district has enrollment of 1,894, which is down 10 from last month, but still up 173 from last year at this time. With the charter school, we're at 3,112, which is up 112 from last year at this time. So here's our fun little chart. We can see we have declined a little bit, but we're still way up there compared.
Yeah, it's huge.
And that is all I have to share with you for district finances.
All right.
What do you think that normal dip is this time of year? It seems like more than half the time it happens.
Yeah.
Is it the time of year to move over
Mhm.
Christmas break or
Yeah.
schools? Or?
It's, you can see historically, that's where we're doing it, and you can see at this time, I've noticed our charter school numbers, our online school is going up some too. So I think they're just transitioning and finding the best spot that works for the students.
Quickly fluid. We're also, we have, because of our Christmas tree industry, we do have an influx of migrant students who start the school year for us, and then once that season comes down, they typically move to the next season of wherever that's at.
And then there also is that, because it's locked for a period of time, right? So, and that puts us into September as well, so.
Correct.
So even though students may have transitioned out before then, they're still showing on our numbers because it's locked for a period of time at the beginning of the school year, so that can cause that immediate drop
Yep.
as well, moving into October. Okay. Other questions for Christina? So is there anything not discussed or shown in this report? It's a little different. It's a little more condensed. It's all the same information, but it's really shown in one fashion as opposed to multiple different ways of showing that. So I just want to make sure, is there anything that wasn't shown or wasn't discussed in the financial report that anybody would like to see?
I really liked it. Thank you.
And as Director Irish alluded to as well, the full report with all the pie graphs and all of that stuff is in our board report, so feel free to geek out on it at any point in time. I already did, but
Me too.
I hope so.
Ryan, this might not be the right time, but as we're speaking about enrollment, in the Planning Commission, last week we had, well, you were present, and we talked about childcare in the greater Estacada area. Like I said, I don't know if this is the time to talk about it, but I think maybe we should touch on that. Do you want to maybe Reader's Digest version it in your superintendent's report a little bit on what you heard and kind of where that conversation led?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Yep.
I think it kind of pairs well with the enrollment part of it.
Yes.
And then I have our old CFO's voice in my head talking about 8 to 12% as a carryover. Is that what we're still trying to keep as, is that
Yeah.
the goal, to keep that percentage?
Yeah, our goal is really, I guess I should say my goal is always to try to hit that 10% mark. We think that anything over 12, we can reallocate those funds in a different way. 12 is, we're happy with 12 right now with where we're at, yeah. But 12 also gives us room and opportunity that if something unexpected comes, we'd feel comfortable being able to allocate some of that end fund towards it. Anything less than 10 is when we'll probably start to get tight.
Thank you.
And that's also a recommendation from the state. I mean,
Yeah,
so that's
the
not just a
state
number we
recommends
make up.
between 5 and 15%. If you're Portland Public, 5% of $1 billion budget is more like 15% of a $40 million budget. So we want to be on the high side of that.
Good question.
As far as the outlook on the budget, I saw that OSBA is starting to kind of pepper us with projections for, what is it, the 2023, 24 biennium?
23, 25, yep.
23, 25,
Mhm.
and it's a very large number, and they're not happy with it, which is no surprise. Do we have any, when does that start firming up, I guess? And when do we start feeling comfortable with it?
Yeah, so the first number that has came out, so this current biennium that we're in, the 2021-23, we received 9.3 million. Billion, yes, billion. And the revenue that is proposed at this point is a 9.5, so that's a 2 billion increase. Yes, and
It's a 2% increase.
yeah, 2%, yes, 9.3 to 9.5, yes. And the reason why is because our cost of our current service level, which is what we are calculating that we need to continue our current service level, we're projecting as across the state, the numbers are coming up above 10 billion. So that's part of the reason why, and we are considering things like substitute shortages, the labor cost increase, the cost, the contract increase, the cost that we are putting in after COVID for our learning loss. So all those things are considered when we're calculating our current service level.
And when they're saying 9.3, 9.5, or 10 billion, that's just the state school fund, right? That's not the overall state, but.
No,
is
we
that right?
will get our first actual in-paper forecast. It comes out generally at the end of February, beginning of March. So
But
that's the number I'll use to build the budget.
It's the state school fund that
Yes.
pays for all public education.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yep.
Okay.
And we get our portion of that 9.5 billion.
Yes.
The challenge is that Christina, her team, and I are grappling with is, as we know, through collective bargaining, our budget is going to increase by 6% next year because of cost of living increase, inflation, and other things. So the reason why it's troublesome for us is I agree with Vice Chair Wheeler's sentiment that the economy in Oregon is actually doing quite well, and the state right now is definitely loading up their reserve coffers. But while school districts are increasing their budgets between 4 to 8%, we're only going to be receiving a 2% funding increase. And so it's all the more important right now that we end this school year with a higher percentage end fund balance, because I think it will get better. This is just the beginning of what's always a bloody political fight. But in the front end of this, if it were to matriculate to truth where it was just a 2% increase, in order for us to continue with our status of investments in everything that we're investing in, we'll have to eat into that end funds up to including 4%, if that makes sense, because of where we're rising versus what we're getting paid for.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
All right, anything else there? Thank you. We'll move on to the superintendent's report.
All right, thank you, Board of Directors, and thank you so much for your authentic enthusiasm, joy, and cheer as we celebrated really the end of a super successful fall season. Of course, capped off with a football state championship, but our men's soccer team, I think, advanced farther than they've advanced in a decade, if not more. And even our women's soccer program is improving in ways that we haven't seen before as well. Our volleyball program made the playoffs, and our fall activities also competed at so many levels. As we enter the winter break, which it's hard to believe that we're already in the winter break. I feel like we just started school. But your superintendent is extremely pleased with the first quarter of our school year in so many different ways. Those are the icing on the cake and the great things, but the hard work that we're doing inside the classrooms, meeting the needs of what I would say hands down is the most challenging type of student we've seen as we come back post-pandemic. The complexities of working with each kid has been difficult. And I'm just so proud that we've been able to amass talent into the Estacada School District to handle each and every kid's unique needs as we emerge in person post-pandemic. And I just want to recognize that. As your superintendent, I want to convey to you that I am happy with the first quarter of our service so far. And I'm excited for our team to get well rested over the winter break because we have more hard work to do when we return in January. I also want to just echo very quickly how pleased I was to welcome over 30 business owners and business leaders from the Chamber of Commerce. Again, as we try to be transparent and open, we want to welcome anybody to come into their community school district to see how we're supporting and serving kids. I thought today was nothing short of another great success for us to say, here's how we're doing. And I felt like our business owners left positive with their experience, and they got to see the intentional work we're doing inside our classroom. So I'm chalking that off as another great win. You're going to be receiving an email in your email in about, I think, 2 or 3 weeks. The state of Oregon just passed a new law called the Statement of Economic Interest. Christina and I have to fill this out each and every single year to validate and verify that we're not doing any type of financial impacts that are a conflict of interest. Like, for example, this is an example, this isn't what I'm doing, would be for me to create some type of LLC and then bill the district for my service from something different. And if that were to happen, or if my wife were to do that, I must disclose that to the state so that they're aware of that from a financial impact. Then am I saying, is that a good example of what I'm not doing? Okay, yes. But now the state of Oregon is requiring all school board members throughout the state of Oregon to also have to disclose that. And so Denise, your school board secretary, is finishing the setup process of that with the state of Oregon. And so you should see an email, and I'll let you know when it comes, but you should see an email link, and it takes about 7 minutes or 8 minutes to fill out, and it just goes through everything. But I wanted you to be prepared for that because that is something you will be required to comply with as an elected official inside the school board. So that's one. Any questions on that before I just move on to it?
Is that something that you guys have had to do for a while?
I've had to do it ever since as a principal, I didn't have to do it, but when I was hired as superintendent, I had to do it then. Yep.
It's something that we had to do at the planning commission. I always thought that it was weird that we didn't have to.
Yeah, yep.
But
yeah, school boards never did, but now you do.
Just got voted in this last cycle.
Yep. Yep.
So I will tell my wife to no longer repair the wrestling mats over there.
I think you can disclose that, and that's an allowable conflict. And tell your wife thank you for her service. Yeah, that's awesome. So just expect that. I wanted to clearly communicate that and work through that. As Director Shibahara pointed out, very excited to have opportunities for our school district to expand partnerships with the Ant Farm, which is a nonprofit, a phenomenal organization. As we've talked about in several board meetings, we are currently seeking ways to better serve our adult transition programs. These are kids 18 years old to 21 years old, which we take pride in serving, and I feel like, and we as a team feel like, we can improve our service to this demographic of student. What I want to point out that I think is good to talk about here is when we think about these kids, as kids graduate from high school, we either see them leave this school district and enter the workforce, or leave the school district and go to college, or leave the school district and enter the military. And so this demographic of kids watches their peers leave the school district while they return for an additional year. And we've historically served this student in Estacada High School, and the feedback that we've gotten historically from these students is they don't like being in the high school because their friends and peers have left and they have to return. As we've grown and we've done different things, this current student body is now being served in one of our portables at River Mill Elementary School. And again, the feedback we're receiving from these students is now they've gone from high school to an elementary school setting, and that's not productive as to what we're trying to, with the culture that we're trying to build inside this program. Plus, next year, I can guarantee that they're not going to have a space in that portable because our growth at River Mill is going to absorb what that classroom space is going to need. And so our long-term hope, as we talked about, is to utilize either ESSER funds or different funds, even from our general fund, to invest into this program to build something permanent for this program that they can call their own and make their own home. What I like about a potential partnership with Ant Farm, who we already partner with, but this is a new deal, is Ant Farm is starting to really do great things inside the community of Estacada. And they recently purchased what we all know as Harmony Bakery. And their intent is to utilize a demographic of student like our adult transitions program to use them as employees and partners to make donuts, help in the bakery, and help run this business, along with other business-like opportunities. And so a space has become available that the Ant Farm has currently purchased. And for those of you who are locals will know that they're right next to the Napa Auto Parts, and there's kind of that food cart section behind the trails and Justin Video kind of right there. There used to be an auto parts store in this brick-faced building, which is now vacant. And Ant Farm has reached out to us because they're the owners of this and have offered for rent for this adult transitions program to move its operations down into the city and in that location, which is in walking distance of Harmony Bakery, which is closer to TriMet and some of the other public transportation access points that they've gone to. And so we asked Vice Chair Shibahara, Director Shibahara, and as well as some parents who have children as a part of that program with Jason Hobson, our special education director, to go view that. And to this point, we've been optimistic about what this partnership could be for us, specifically in the short run as we think about what the long run looks like for this program. But why I and we, the school district, like this opportunity is because if we're in a off-campus city location, then this demographic also gets to exit our high school campus and go somewhere else, just like their peers. And that's attractive to us, is what we think about what this program looks like. And so this is the beginning of that conversation. We're not committing ourselves to anything at this moment, but we do like what this partnership could bring to this program, as well as we like potential opportunities of what it could look like in the long run. But right now, our conversation is moving less towards a purchase and more towards a rent in the long haul, which has pros and cons associated with that. Questions on that? Or if you'd like to expand or add to that, Director Shibahara, you're welcome to do so also.
Well, just as you mentioned, I think being in the city is very attractive to those students and those individuals. And what's really neat about this building is they, already renovated it. It's got an ADA accessible bathroom, so some of those students that can't attend currently could participate. And I know a lot of them volunteer down at the food bank, and so it's easy access to a lot of those. And I think Ant Farm has a lot of programs that these students could actively roll into and participate, and it just feels like a really neat natural partnership. And I think it would be kind of like a use agreement kind of like thing, because it's like we wouldn't have exclusive access to this facility because it is still theirs and we're only using it during the school year.
Correct.
So there would be kind of an agreement that need to be written, but it seems like a really neat opportunity.
Because of the space not being on school district property, is there any compliance concerns that you have just about who's in and out, and these are students of the district?
Yeah, those are some of the we'll call them speed bumps that we need to work through in the process. Liability, contract, safety, and making sure, I guess I'll say it out loud because I wish that it would improve. I think that Justin Video and the Trails restaurants are also not well reputable establishments of what could be around those kids. And I do have concerns, public concerns about that also. Our other concern is transportation. So we transport these students, and if, let's say, we pick up a student on Springwater, right, we transport them to the school campus proper. And so we'll need to find a way to get them from school to the city. And so there are some logistical issues that we do need to explore that protects what we're trying to accomplish with that program, all while still being mindful of our liability inside of that.
So help me out.
Of course.
I like the idea. I just am trying to visualize where it's at. Where I'm thinking it's at is it's just a little building.
Correct.
Little brick building.
Yep.
Okay, how many people can that handle at a given time?
It's surprisingly bigger than it appears from the front, and it has a garage door that goes back into that alley that you're
Right.
thinking about right there. And with the way that it's been renovated, it's completely wide open. And so I can't tell you exactly what the capacity is, other than I can tell you that right now we currently serve 11 students in that program, and it will support that.
Yeah.
I do anticipate that as attractive as this innovative program could be, I could see it serving more students than it currently does. And I also can see us serving Colton, Malala, and Sandy as this program grows in attractiveness as well. And so the possibility is really exciting about what it could be. Our intent is not to open it up necessarily to others, but we already have people knocking on our doors to see, specifically Colton, to see if we could serve that child as
So
well.
the Ant Farm's home is Sandy, right?
Correct, yep.
So why wouldn't they want to start something there like what we're talking about doing here?
Yep, to put it politically best, the Sandy School District's relationship with Ant Farm is different than our relationship with the Ant Farm. And so the Ant Farm is really moving a lot of their resources and assets to Estacada because we have engaged in those opportunities where the Oregon Trail School District has not.
I also think I just want to call out that this is we see the longer term vision of having like a permanent home. A permanent place, but as we know, our capacity issues right now, and this is a really attractive short-term option, I think, and short-term maybe, who knows how long. But again, I think thinking ahead to the future, we definitely want something, I think, even more permanent. And there's, there are some things that this place doesn't have that we would like to provide for those students, like a kitchen and a washer and dryer and, some other facilities. But at the same time, I think it's a really interesting idea for now.
Yep. It's definitely worth exploring further down this pathway to see if it addresses what we
And
want.
frankly, I like the idea of renting first, right? Because we're still building this program out as well.
Yeah.
But I would echo in spades, getting these individuals into the city area, because a lot of this is life skills that we're teaching. And so going to the store and how do you take care of that? And to Director Shibahara's point, down the road, doing laundry, doing dishes, right? These are life skills that we want to help as we transition these kiddos out of the system. So I think it's awesome.
Yeah. So exciting to report that because we're working very hard on that right now and trying to grow out that program. And then also to actually, I'll come back to childcare in a second. There's one other thing I just wanted to communicate. As you take a look here, I've got the ESSER funds posted for you. I believe 2 board meetings ago, the Board of Directors, approved our changes ultimately to support the financing of our HVAC systems, 33 of them, and we're using COVID federal ESSER dollars to pay for that, so it's not coming out of our general fund. And then another thing I just wanted to communicate is as we've worked through our employee engagement surveys and as we've started to round on qualitative data of our employees, and I talk about the complex challenges that we're experiencing with kids. One of the things that I've communicated before too is we are seeing an increased frequency of our adults who are in physical contact with students, be that biting, kicking, spitting, and working through escalation situations. In October, I would tell you that that was our peak of when we were having to do more frequent classroom clears. We were having to utilize different strategies and techniques to de-escalate primarily elementary school outbursts and episodes, and through the collective voice of our employees as we thematically think about ways that we, the board, and their superintendent can support them. It has thematically come up that we need to improve our internal, I guess I don't have it on me now, but our two-way communication system. So currently, all administrators and building secretaries and custodians have a walkie-talkie and an earpiece. So when a behavioral situation occurs, we are able to communicate from an administrative way. But that still leaves our classroom teachers and our paraeducators who are in the front lines of working through some of these complex behaviors and situations, a barrier to communicate to get help fast. And so we're trying to look outside of the box a little bit because our current Motorola walkie-talkie system is expensive. It's $800 per radio that we've spent and invested over the course of 10 years. We have built this Motorola radio capacity, but the employees are making it clear to us that they also would like the opportunity to be able to communicate either from paraeducator to teacher, from special education case manager to paraeducator, or anybody to an administrator to help. And so as we listen to that and process that employee voice and think about how we can efficiently and effectively support the voices of our employees as we try to engage this group of students and what the future of education is going to look like, I am challenging our organization to look outside of the education realm into how we tackle that communication process, which has led us to looking at how hospitals and the medical field are communicating in like type situations. And so we've all been to a doctor's office or a hospital in the last few years, and you'll notice that all healthcare workers have some type of a small communication badge type piece of technology on them, and so they can contact a doctor in an emergency, or as if you go to any ER on Friday night at 1 o'clock in the morning, you will notice too that there are behavioral outbursts that do require that type of communication to support systems. And so right now I just wanted to communicate with the board that we are currently researching how hospital and medical facilities utilize their internal walkie-talkie emergency radio services to see if that's something affordable and efficient and effective that we can implement into a school type setting. And so I'm sharing this with you because right now we currently have some opportunity through our federal ESSER funds, which this falls within the scope of its compliance because we're trying to make our schools safer. And this falls within the realm of that. And so I do hope in the next school board meeting in January, we're going to go out for a RFP request process to see if there are some radio companies out there that can give us a good price and bid so that we can support our employees in that. And I'd like to allocate some of these one-time federal COVID funds to be able to support that investment, because otherwise I don't think we could afford this investment out of the general fund without it impacting the classroom in a different way, if that makes sense. Finally, I want to address what Vice Chair Wheeler talked about in terms of the need for childcare. So as he alluded to, I had the opportunity to participate in a city planning commission meeting. And the focus of that planning commission meeting was growth, as it always is, but the new demand for childcare. And what came up inside that, and Vice Chair Wheeler, I encourage you to help me with this, is really the conversation of a demand from our new families who are moving into this community. A lot of them are in our elementary schools, but a lot of them are also too young to be inside our public school system. And some of the challenges that are child care businesses, which we don't have a lot of them, we need more, but some of the challenges are the zoning inside of the city of Estacada, which is prohibitive of people opening up a child care business inside the city proper due to the zoning. And so the request at the city council meeting or the planning commission meeting was to review some of the zonings that occurs to allow for more opportunities for child care provision. But of course, the question always comes back to the school and what the school is also doing to support that. It's important to note that we have 2 pre-K programs, one at each school, and we also have before and after school daycare, which is also provided by those pre-K programs just the same. But that doesn't stop or curb the demand for what's happening inside of that. And Vice Chair Wheeler, do you have anything to add into that?
The lady that was, I forget her name, but she runs Tiny Timbers, which is at River Mill and Clackamas River, right?
Yep.
I was surprised that as she was kind of walking through her last year and getting awarded that ability to start at River Mill and then Clackamas River, went in a matter of 8 weeks from 16 kids
80-something.
to 80-something kids. And went from 6 employees to 15 employees just overnight, more or less. I mean, because of the demand. And part of it was the shift to a 4-day school week. But there's also, like he was saying, a pretty strong demand for the 0 to 3, and then the level of care that's required, the amount of adults that are required to be around those kids. So it was interesting, and part of it is the city's not being malicious in any way.
No.
With their code, the way it's written, it's just a lot of times when those code changes or just get adopted, much like our policy does, sometimes things just get overlooked. And as we're finding out as we're growing, a lot of these zonings just aren't compatible, and you don't want to put a child care facility in a commercial area or a heavy industrial area, and there's just not a lot of commercial around the areas that surround the schools because it's all residential. And so it's something that her bringing it to the attention of the city planner and then the planning commission, hopefully we can kind of work through a solution to maybe make some of the transitional areas a little bit better, transitional in the way of zoning from the mixed use commercial and residential stuff. So, but it's kind of the way with everything. I mean, we've worked through it with marijuana and all the other things that come to a city planning department of, like, where does this fit in? We don't want it next to schools. We do want it next to schools and that kind of stuff. So it'll be an interesting conversation, see where it goes. But it's a definite need. So if anybody wants to start a child care, we need one. No zoning issues up on the loop.
Let's go. Yeah, no zoning issues up in George.
That's a short commute.
Since that meeting, it is important to note, because this is going to come to the school board, I'm sure, at some time, if it hasn't come to individual members already. But 2 days after that meeting, I was approached by that consortium that was at that event. And one of the things that zoning does allow for is if they're a public education institution, then those zoning laws are waived. And so they've already taken a strategic pitch, a sales pitch to me about the school district purchasing the Forest Service building and then subleasing the Forest Service building to daycares as a business entity, which would override the zoning prohibition, but also, so I've listened to that, but I anticipate you all will hear that as well from our community in that constituency. Because they told me they were going to come talk to you next. Okay, that is your superintendent's report.
Okay. Questions? Discussion?
I have one more question. Sorry, guys and gals. Ryan, I know that you and the administrative staff and some of the teaching and learning specialists around the district have been going to district, or not, out of district conferences.
Yeah.
Throughout the country. And I know that as people probably hear about that, they wonder what's going on. If you could maybe just give us another Reader's Digest version
Yeah.
of what you're doing and spreading the good word about Estacada and why that's important to do that.
Yeah. So I'll try to keep this short. It's fun to tell our story always. But pre-pandemic, we started working with a contract as we tried to execute our strategic plan with Studer Education, a national company who utilizes the evidence-based leadership framework to execute on a strategic plan. And during the pandemic, the Estacada School District shot out like a rocket ship in terms of what we were accomplishing versus other school districts. And so very quickly, school districts from not only around Oregon, but around the United States wanted to learn more about what we were doing in the classrooms, how we were serving our community during the pandemic, and how we were leading, as you all know, our best-in-class virtual school. We were open when other schools were closed. We were one of the first schools to bring kids back when we weren't allowed to bring kids back. Our hybrid school, where some kids were on the computer while some kids were there. All of those things started making national notes and attention. And so our partner, Studer Education, who we've been champions of their work, has now asked us to speak at several different school districts and conferences around the United States of America to share our journey and help other school districts as they work through this evidence-based leadership journey together. And so most recently, we were welcomed to the Learning Forward Conference, which is the largest teacher professional development conference in the United States, where the Estacada School District, the superintendent, director of elementary schools, and our teacher coach, Lindsay Fullenwider, who's phenomenal. The three of us had the opportunity to share how we've aligned our organization from boardroom to classroom, was the title of our presentation, and share that journey with teachers from around the United States. There were over 5,000 educators and educator folks who were a part of that. We did a similar thing in Pensacola, Florida, but what I'm most excited for is in March, 300 educators from around the country will be coming to the Estacada School District to take a similar tour that you all were on, so they can see this work in action. And so we're one of the few school districts. Right now, everyone is still, I'll say this publicly, tripping over themselves in the word equity right now, and equity continues to be the leading framework. I think, though, that the next thing, because there's always a next thing, is going to be continuous improvement, and we're on like the leading edge of where that's at. And once people realize that although equity and that lens is important, it's not actually making a difference in student outcomes to some perspective, I think it's going to transform into that. And so people around the country are positioning the Estacada School District to kind of be that model school of what next looks like. And it's an honor and a privilege to be able to tell our story, and thank you for your support in allowing Estacada to tell its story across the country.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else for Ryan? All right. On to item G for additional reports and presentations. We have none. On to item H, discussion. So we have two in the discussion now. So one was city water on the city water for the district, and then also the back 20 in general. So I think the city water starts with Director Wheeler, I believe.
Sorry, guys, I'm talking a lot. You can slap me later. It's fine. Where this came from, years ago, let's see, it was before Nick's, it was Donna that came to the city, Donna Cancio came to the city council and said, hey, can we punch a well in to irrigate our fields? Which, for those of us that have the delight of drinking clean drinking water, we are putting the best drinking water, probably the purest water in the state of Oregon, on a perfectly good grass field, which to me is kind of weird. But Donna's thought was that we would put irrigated well water out there, the city council, and at the time Denise Carey said not only no, but heck no, you're going to use city water. So fast forward to now, a lot of growth in the city. Where the most recent part of this is they're talking about putting a new wastewater treatment plant in. The talk is real. It's getting to a point where on really wet days, we're reaching capacity as governed by the DEQ and EPA and everybody else that cares about that stuff, like we all do. So we're not putting bad water back in the streams. So part of that is as they're crafting this plan for the new wastewater treatment plant, the idea is that this new plant would be somewhere else than the current location by the timber park, but it takes water to clean the wastewater, is one part of it. And we are limited as a city on how much water we can pull out of the Clackamas River. And so as you look at those values, the amount of water we can pull out is far less than the amount of water we can put back in. The water that goes through the wastewater treatment plant is hopefully so clean that it gives us a credit so that we can actually pull more water out, if that makes sense. So as we're putting clean water back in, we're actually using less water. And Chris Lewis is the manager of the wastewater treatment plant and the water treatment plant at the city. And he said, you know, it'd be really nice because in the summer is when we have the max amount of usage for clean water. The winter on the wet days is the wastewater. And it's governed on daily limits, kind of average. And it's a kind of like our ADM. It's got a government formula that they spit out, and tell us what we can use. So bottom line is we're limited on the amount of clean water we can have, but we use a significant amount, perhaps the most amount in the city.
The school district?
The school district, yes, we, as a school district, in sprinkling fields so that our high school programs and middle school and youth programs can play on nice grass, which is great. Thanks to the school district for doing that. But one option is that we would drill a well, and this has been kind of the collective head nod in the room was, yes, that would be a good idea because it effectively decreases the city's water usage. People aren't drinking it. And so it's just the start of the conversation. Sorry, that was a long-winded way to get to where we're at. But I feel like it was a good idea 15 years ago, or it was an idea 15 years ago. It's becoming a better idea because we have more grass to water. And the city is somewhat compliant at this point in time. So it's just really initiating that conversation on our end.
So with the board's approval, without voting, I certainly would like your head nod for Vice Chair Wheeler and I to continue furthering that conversation and working with the city municipalities as we further that, because it will take an action from them as well to allow us to drill that well. But as Vice Chair Wheeler and I did some math, we think drilling a well would pay for itself in about 3 or 4 years.
And I think the other part too is the water need in Estacada is not going to reduce.
Correct.
Right. So this, even when the city does upgrade and increase its capacity, there could be a lifespan of that increase as well. So, and my understanding is the last time it was proposed, there is a financial component to the city, right? If we're not paying to irrigate our fields, and so if we are in a position where people around the table are entertaining that, then I think that that's the time to have that conversation when it benefits both parties, instead of waiting until it no longer benefits both parties, and then, because we need their approval to do it. And so if it's a conversation that people are willing to have right now, I would say we need to have it now. So
A fun fact for a party, if you go to one, is from May of last year to October of this year, the track field, the back 20 acres, the softball fields and the baseball fields, and this practice soccer field right here, we watered 1.6 million gallons of water on the grass from May to October.
You know, there's another thing too.
About $9,000.
That I don't know if we're all aware of is when you tap into an aquifer of that size, you have to have state approval.
Right.
Because it's not the city of Estacada, you're getting the county and the state involved.
And there's different rules for an irrigation well versus a domestic water well that any one of us could put on our own property without, outside of the city limits. 'Cause
Right.
Once you become a part of the city limits, you agree to hook up to their services. So, So yeah, again, there could be some hurdles that we can't overcome, but I think it's worthwhile maybe starting that conversation and going down the road.
Yeah.
The other part of the city conversation is that if they can't either buy water rights from, say, Oregon City or whoever else draws water out of the Clackamas River, it would be much like the city of Portland does. They have the Bull Run watershed, that if a landslide gets the water murky, they go to their well field that's up there on the Columbia Slough, and they start pulling water out of the ground of these city-owned wells. And so the city's talking about having to do that at some point in time on their own property, put a well field in that's a secondary source, whereas if, North Fork Dam breaches and it's dirty water for years, they can revert to that and not have 5,000 people out of water. But it's just part of the big conversation we're all encountering with growth, so something that we haven't had to have in 40 last years. So. Anyway.
Okay. We'll proceed forward then.
All right. Any other discussion on that one before we move to the next discussion item? All right. So we will go back 20 acres, and I think, Will, you wanted to talk through that.
So the reason why I wanted to bring it up is youth baseball and softball utilize all the fields that are in the area as well as all the programs. And we've seen tremendous growth in the youth baseball and softball organization. Just for numbers' sake, 2 years ago we had 250 registered players. Last year we had 400 registered players. So that was 150 players in 1 year. This year, just for our 3rd and 4th grade alone, which all girls and boys play on 60-foot bases at that age, we suspect 8 teams across the girls softball and boys baseball. And that's growth of about 4 teams in a year. So, I'm here trying to get a better understanding of what we're doing with the back and knowing the needs of soccer and baseball and softball and the field back there on how we can make it that the teams could utilize it. We utilize it during youth football, but that was pretty easy. You just mark out lines and have kids run, right? And but it's a little bit more complicated when it comes to baseball, creating a diamond and so on. So I just wanted to get an understanding of more what our goal is with that back acreage.
Yeah.
And
I guess for the group, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that, again, the biggest growth that we see is in that 60 to 70-foot bases, right? So I don't think we're not talking outfield fences, right, things like that. When I thought about it a couple years ago, it was kind of the idea of, can we sink a backstop at all 4 corners, right? And you could even do cutouts for the bases, as opposed to declaring this whole square footage as a dirt field that needs to be used for baseball. And that would be one way that you're not eating up that other space of the other sports, the footballs, the soccers, if lacrosse comes to Estacada, right? So I think there's ways to mitigate that where it really could be basically just a backstop at all 4 corners and call it good. And you're not really reducing. I wasn't out there during football, but I feel like there's still a lot of unused space out there during the fall. Fair amount.
Yeah, I think soccer was out there, football was out there. We were using as much of the space as possibly could.
There were 4 football teams and 3 soccer teams out there on a daily basis, and there was still probably room for 2 or 3 full-size football or soccer fields. I mean, you were out there too. You probably saw that as well. But you're right that the footprint of a baseball and softball field is different, where football and soccer open grass is preferred. This is a little bit different. I think we do need to, again, have a long-term strategy for how we handle this growth. I have a couple of worries right now that are worrying me. Just looking at putting gravel for a parking lot back there is over $100,000, and I don't see a funding source at the moment for the school district to invest in that infrastructure. Although I support it entirely and I want to do it as well. I also wonder too, one of the things that we've learned from the installation of the new turf field is I don't know if it's a deep and wide approach, but because that turf facility and the lights allowed us to use that field until 8 or 9 o'clock every single night too, I wonder if it would be, I don't know if it's cost effective or a worthwhile investment, but instead of expanding fields, could we light fields, which allows for different times for things to be used? Because right now, especially early spring, we're done at 5 o'clock.
Very latest.
And, there's 4 usable hours if you had lights for more capacity. And so I almost wonder if we do need to tackle this growth from a deep and wide approach. And we know that lights would also improve our high school facilities from the softball perspective and the baseball perspective. So everybody wins in that investment inside of that. But I would like to explore more of those options.
And again, I didn't have a solution. I
No,
thought we
yeah.
hadn't talked about it in a while,
Yeah.
so, and I
Yeah.
know that we're right around the corner
Yeah.
from hundreds
Yeah.
of kids playing baseball and softball.
Well, and that's just the truth, right? As much as I'd love to see more outside organizational financial support, because, it would be nice for the school not to have to foot that whole bill. At the end of the day, these kids are coming no matter what, and they are Estaqueta's kids also. And we do believe in academics, athletics, and activities. And we see this as an extracurricular activity, regardless of what organization they're paying dues to. This is a total education of a child.
Is there opportunity to engage the city in more conversation around that as well from a Parks and Rec kind of standpoint?
Yeah. I mean, yes, I think so. I think the city did a great job in their portion of this partnership where they've, closed the ditch. They've done their half of that, and I think it's our turn to improve our half, even though we are utilizing it. It's a park space. It's serving kids just as it's intended. We do have intentions to build that concession stand. So those are all in the plans, and we feel good about that. But yes, this is not just a school district problem, and we need more stakeholders too. And I understand the constraints that youth soccer, youth football, youth baseball, everyone's under. I mean, it's not like those organizations have $250,000 to give to that. And at the end of the day, if we were like other communities, particularly Sandy, our neighbor to the north, they charge premium rental prices for those community organizations to rent that. And I see that as a not effective thing, because the moment we start charging rent to these organizations is the same moment they make that $275 pay-to-play fee a $475 pay-to-play fee, which impacts the very kids that we're trying to help in the first place. So just publicly, I think it's important to talk about the complexity of that growth. Yeah.
Do you think we could get to a point where we have maybe a collective consensus of this is what we want? And then I know that there's a couple people within the youth baseball ranks that have willingly said, hey,
we'll help.
Give me the piece of dirt and I'll come and fix it up.
Yeah.
Obviously we still need to come up with a backstop or two or whatever it is, but the work itself can be done, but just the massaging of the dirt and making it a playable surface, because there's still some work to be done and sprinkler heads to be adjusted and all that kind of stuff. But if we can say, hey, put your energy towards this corner.
Yeah.
And then we can check that box.
Yeah, that's not a
I
bad
mean,
idea.
I think that would be most helpful, because I think there's, like you said, a handful of community members that are raising their hands saying that they know it's coming down the pipe and
Yeah.
they want to be able to help.
Yeah.
So to your point, Ben, I think there just needs to be some structure around what's happening back there so that we can get people moving if they need to move.
Well, we haven't had a strategic plan meeting on that back 20 in a long time, right? I mean, that was back at the athletic committee days.
Well, it's newer than that, but yes.
Well, but I mean, but bringing in the other stakeholders too, and maybe there has,
Yeah.
but
No,
bringing
no,
in the youth
yeah.
organizations and,
Yeah.
again, what does it look like what do we want to do? How do we want to do that to,
Yeah.
again, and I think, Rochelle, you've been bringing this up for a long time, right? Let's
Well,
actually have a plan.
Yeah, I mean, I think the long-term plan, and I know Mike, I'm sure, has lots of thoughts running through his head as we're having these conversations, but I mean, I think of even just the longer-term plan of, our use for the district needs, alone,
that
of
property.
expansion, right,
Yeah.
of that property. So to spend money on putting infrastructure in that we may or may not
That's a good call.
need to take
Yeah.
back out someday. I just want to make sure we're not, putting something in that then we would have to remove.
Yeah. And there is a long-term plan with a beautiful drawing, and everything is, I mean, it's a collaborative plan that is a great working plan. It just costs $2 million to put that plan into place.
Well, and again, to Director Shibahar's point, we may need that land for something else
Absolutely,
entirely.
completely.
Which then will cause all kinds of other
Strife.
crazy, yeah. I don't know.
Oh.
But was this part of the commitment of putting in another field for the youth?
No.
For baseball? No, we already did that.
No,
We already put that
we're,
one in
we're,
that
we're
we had to
obligated
do.
to install a restroom facility and concession stand facility. We're obligated to that, and it's our desire, and I'd say we're quasi-obligated to put some type of vehicular parking inside of that as well. We would like to just put gravel down, but again, that's a violation of the code, and we're supposed to pave the whole thing, which completely eliminates us from the conversation. So we're actively looking for loopholes, but even to gravel, a giant rectangle is $100,000 right now.
Can we utilize the paved road that runs past the auto
Yes.
shop to go back? And do we have to pave a parking lot?
So the technical answer is yes. We have thought of some loopholes that makes things construction zones, that, are ways that we could get access as we construct the back area there. We can access that new paved area that we installed 3 or 4 years ago. However, my problem is my concern is of the vehicular traffic while kids are back there. And as we know, from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock, like that is where, I don't know, a quarter of our community is.
No, you'd have to secure it, but it's also, I don't think you can fit 2 vehicles on it, right? So I
Correct.
don't think it's, because you could fence it if we needed to, right?
Right.
I mean, we could do that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's what I want to do. I'm
No,
just
yeah.
throwing stuff out there, but.
For sure.
But it still wouldn't work if that's the in and out,
Correct,
unless you had flaggers the whole time.
correct. Yeah.
Okay.
But as you introduce, just to make this a longer meeting, as you introduce 4 additional teams, that's also going to equal, 20 additional cars. And as you think about the impact of the transportation department and that Broadway road, I mean, it's going to be a circus back there, and ultimately, someone's going to have to be liable for that circus, and I can see who that's going to be, and that concerns me as well.
Okay.
Well, should definitely come out with red paint to paint a curb or 2 in that area.
Yeah, because they really pay attention to those.
Sure we do.
Well, I appreciate being able to talk about it. I think that just wanted to make sure it brought up again. It's on my mind, and
Yeah.
I know that it's just right around the corner.
I will say one additional potential solution too is using the turf field for some practice area. So
Yes.
that does create.
The
some
turf field will
additional-
get used for
Certainly
baseball
when
and
it's raining.
softball season this year,
Yeah,
for
but
sure.
there is, much like, I can speak for football at least, but, I mean, I could count on 2 hands the number of times that I practiced football on an actual football field in the 15 years that I coached.
Yeah.
Right? When it was typically a chunk of ground here or a chunk of ground
Yeah,
here.
sure.
Yeah.
And you might get a day or so to try to work on the
Yeah.
field. So, baseball, softball's a little different,
Yeah.
because there are specifics there, but, I think that'll be another resource that can be used.
Yeah.
I really like the idea of the lights, though.
Yes.
I do think
Yeah.
that's interesting, extending the day,
Yep.
extending the use time.
Yep.
I don't know if that's
It
feasible or not.
I don't know either. I'd like to look into it, though, because
It's worth looking into.
it opens up 4 hours times however many we can light.
There's already a bunch of poles at the varsity field, right?
Yes, there are. I don't know if they're still good or usable. I had Ryan Hagel and I brought those in 2011.
Was it that long ago?
And they've been laying there ever since.
Wow.
Yeah,
I bet they're still fine,
let's go.
at least the top ones.
Yeah.
So, okay. Anything else on that, Director Johnston?
No, thank you.
All right. All right, on to item I, hearing of citizens for action items only.
None.
None. On to item J, the consent agenda includes a package of one or more items to be voted on as a unit. However, if any board member is not in favor of one or more agenda items and prefers to take separate action, a request to the chair anytime prior to the vote will remove that item for a separate vote. I'm going to make a request to the vice chair. So Vice Chair Wheeler, I request to have items J1B2 and J1B3 removed from the consent agenda and voted on separately.
Do I need a second?
Do I need to make that motion? Because you can't make a motion, can you?
Yeah, you just have to disclose your typical thing.
Potential conflict.
Okay. So I could step out of this one, right?
Yeah, per BBFA.
Okay, so we'll just do it there instead of removal. So, sorry, I'm going to back
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
Before we get into here, as per policy BBFA, I'd like to declare an actual conflict of interest on the consent agenda. I will not be participating in any motion, discussion, or vote of this item.
Nor will I.
Duly noted. So we'll need a motion and a second.
Vice Chair Wheeler, I move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Now we can discuss if needed. This is the first reading?
Second.
Second reading. This is the second reading, like I said. I was thinking we've seen this before. Any other discussion? Okay. With Chair Rydell and Director Berman abstaining from this vote, we get all in favor, raise your right hand.
Motion carries.
Okay.
Thank you, Vice Chair Wheeler. On to hearing of citizens for non-action items.
None.
All right, with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining online. We'll see you next month.
I got a question.